Creating an external help file is another type of documentation. Note, I'm not talking about help for the end user of the application, but rather about code documentation, which can be read by other programmers to get a better understanding of the code API. To demonstrate this, I'm going to use this solution called Documenting and a project called Tour Booking Lib. I'd like to document this Book CS class. Here it is. It has a number of properties and several methods. I can put a comment in this code, but the only people that can see this comment are developers that can access the source code. That doesn't do people much good when they're using my DLL or my assembly. Let's see where I'm using this book. I'm going to open up program.cs and look at these two lines of code. Here I'm instantiating the book class. Here I'm calling the update price method. When I hover my mouse over this book, I get very little information. Same with this update price. I see that it takes one parameter. If I hover over the tour class, I see that it says the default constructor. So somehow the tour class is getting more information than the book class. Let me show you how you add this documentation. You go back to the book class and you add what is called an XML comment. So you type in 3/. When I type in the 3/, Visual Studio also adds 2 extra lines of code and puts in these XML beginning tags and ending tags. That's why they're called XML comments. Now I can type a note in here and do the same thing for my update price method down here. I typed in updates the price of the book. Notice that it also stubbed in a param with name book ID and a param with name new price. And then I can put information in about these parameters. I'll do the same thing down here. And now I'm ready to check this out. I'll go back to my program.cs file and I'll hover over this update price and I now get some more information. Updates the price of the book. And when I attempt to add a parameter here, I'll see that there are 2 overloads of this method. And as I type in the values, hit the comma, you'll see that it's pulling up the information. The new price updates the price of the book. If I work with the percentage one, it tells me it's the new price by percent. So this is documentation for the other developers. If this is all you do, it's still better than having no comments or no XML comments in your application. Now you can do a lot more sophisticated things with this. Let's see what we have in the tour class. Here we have a summary and we also have an example. Here I have a summary for the default constructor. And here I have a constructor that takes another parameter. So I say a constructor that takes the tour name, the initial name of the tour, and then an example of the code you would use to write that. And then I have comments for each of my properties. I also have a ticket type enum, and I'm putting a summary here, and then I'm putting a summary in for each of the items inside the enumeration. So now when I go ahead and use this in my program file, when I use senior discount, it says indicates whether the tour has a senior discount available. Let's look at this enum ticket type. Now I need to call this method instead get tour price. This is what I wanted you to see when I hit this dot operator and hover over kid or normal or senior. I get a tooltip that tells me that extra information. Very nice. You might also want to turn these XML comments into a help file. To do that, you need to go to your properties section of your application. And down here at the bottom of the build section, you want to make sure there's a check mark here in the XML documentation file. So this is going to create a file called booklib.xml. So when I build my project and go look on my hard drive, you'll see there is an XML file in here that contains information written out during the compilation process. I can pass this XML information to a third-party tool to generate some help files. Here's one you might be interested in. It's called Sandcastle. Sandcastle was a tool that was originally written by Microsoft and then turned over to the open source world a few years ago. You can get a copy of Sandcastle at this URL. Now, I don't have time to actually run through the steps to generate this help, but I have created a CHM file here from that tool so you can look at it. I'll double click on this, and this is what we have for the help file. We've got the Tour Booking Live namespace, which contains two classes, book and tour, and one enumeration called ticket type. When I click on the ticket type, it shows me a little grid down here with the ticket type name and the description. I'll click on back. I can go over here and look at the book class and see the book members, or the tour class and see the tour members. I can look at the constructors. There's two of those. And that example XML text that I put in there is now being shown here in this example section. Here's my two constructors. Here's my tour methods. Again, you look here on the parameters, it tells you what the tour ID does and what the ticket type does. It also cross-references to the ticket type if you want to go look at that again. And it also has my tour properties. Whether or not you create help files, I still encourage you to document your code with the XML comments. Why? The main reason is that it makes your code friendly to other developers, as Visual Studio will provide the IntelliSense information.